Hi, I'm AJ with Pinnacle Diving, and today I'm going to be doing a very brief discussion on some very popular fin choices that are used for recreational, technical, and professional and occupational diving around the world. These are probably some of the most popular fins, and there's lots of opinions on which ones are better. I think that what's better is sort of subjective to a point, and that's because people tend to gravitate towards what they like. There are some agencies out there, for example, that do push a particular type of fin over others, and they have some claims with regards to those fins, although I would also say that their claims are subjective. I think that as an instructor, our job is not really to push particular types of gear, but more so to give people the pros and cons, describe the way that the gear performs, and list the performance characteristics of different types of equipment so that divers can make their own decisions as to what they want to choose. Well-informed diver, a well-informed student is going to make a decision that gravitates towards better equipment, and that equipment is either going to help you or it will work against you in the water. So our job as instructors is to provide you with all the information and let you make the decision on your own as to what you think is going to work best for you. So that being said, there are 4 different fins that I have here. I'm going to describe the characteristics of them, like what kind of category they fall into, performance characteristics, and a little bit of history I'll discuss on 2 of them, because I feel that that's kind of important to the conversation. And then I'll give you the pros and cons of their design versus what their capabilities are. And you can use that information to determine whether a fin is, better or worse, and what it can do for you in the water. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about are vented rubber fins. And the reason why I'm bringing these up first is because they are classic. They've been around forever. They're not necessarily the original, but they pretty much are. They're pretty close to it. So the first one is the SCUBA Pro Jet Fin. Now, this is a USA made SCUBA Pro Jet Fin. There is a big difference, and some people will argue with this because SCUBA Pro moved manufacturing to Taiwan, and so there are Taiwanese produced jet fins. They are real jet fins, but the material is different and they feel different, and the performance characteristics of them are slightly different as well compared to the ones that are made in the United States. These ones were issued to me in dive school. I've had them for, over 20 years now. Originally, they came with a rubber strap. At some point in the last 6 years, I took that strap off and I put on a spring strap from OMS. But the USA made ones will have the patent information on the back, and that's one of the identifying ways. It'll say made in USA. That's one of the ways that you can tell if this is a real USA made jet fin. It is practically the heaviest fin in the world. I don't think I've ever seen a fin heavier than these particular fins. They are bricks on your feet, and quite honestly, that is one of a few reasons why I just don't use these fins anymore. When I was young in my diving career, I was given these fins. I loved them, at least I thought I did. And then as time progressed and I got better and started trying other things, I realized that these are actually horrible fins. They're horrible because they're ungodly heavy. They're extremely heavy, but they have some design flaws that need correction. One of those design flaws is that they do not come with vent holes in the foot pocket. Now, let me talk about that real quick. Lots of companies are putting these in on their fins by design now, and lots of divers mistakenly believe that these are drainage holes. They do act as drainage holes, but that's not what they're for. The reality is that when you put your foot in the pocket and then you go diving, the increased pressure squeezes out all the extra gas and it sucks your foot into the pocket. That suction can make it almost impossible for you to take your fin off at the end of the dive. Adding the holes relieves the pressure, and when you come back up and you get to the surface, you want to go take your fins off, water's able to flow freely through these holes, and because there's no pressure in there, it allows you to take your foot off easier. I'm not going to say with ease, but easier than would it be without these holes. Service members will, and some people who buy these will drill holes into them, and that's kind of what I did. I stuck my hand in here all the way to the bottom of the foot pocket and palpated underneath, and then marked it, and then drilled these holes in here a long time ago. I can't even remember when it happened. And then the rubber strap, the USA made ones only come with a rubber strap. They do not come with a spring strap. And so cutting those bars off, removing that strap, and then putting on a spring strap was a modification I felt was a good thing to do at the time. These are really good fins for providing power underwater. And that's what they were designed for. These were specifically designed by SCUBA Pro for the United States military, for US military divers, for actual diving use. The vented rubber fin allows you to vent, the water goes through the venting part, and it allows you to reset your kick cycle with less effort, so that when you go to make the next stroke, it catches all the water and pushes it across the fin. You'll notice that on the paddle blade, it's smooth. And then you have these thick rails. The rails are designed to trap water, and then the blade pushes the water off the edge. And because they're relatively stiff, they do give you a lot of thrust, but they're not as stiff as many people think, and they tend to fold about halfway through, and you get eddying where the water rolls off the edge, and you're losing the back half of that thrust on these fins. That's not necessarily the reason why I don't like them. I personally don't like them because they're very, very heavy. And in a wetsuit, these do increase the moment, the weight times the distance away from center of gravity of your feet, and they give you that downward tilt. It makes it harder for divers to keep their feet off the bottom. And then the second reason I don't like them is the foot pocket design has always, for the entire history of these fins, been the stupidest design ever. It's a square pocket with almost no relief. It's almost a vertical straight down cut. There's a little bit near the top, but not much. And the foot is square, or the pocket is square. And so because it's square, it's not very tall, and it doesn't come back far. There's no relief here, so it's not like a diagonal kind of cut to this foot pocket. What happens is the boot goes into the foot pocket, and it only goes about halfway on the foot. That's it. The boot can't go any further. You can see it's already up to the top of the arc here. Why is this a problem? This is a huge problem, because while you're kicking, this thing is pivoting like a hinge, and it's putting pressure on the bottom of your foot right in the arc, right in the arch of the foot. That can pinch, that can cause discomfort. It is not the greatest design at all, and it doesn't really allow you to have full control over the fin. Your foot is not connected to the fin to as much of a degree as it could be if the bottom of the fin extended all the way back to the heel. So because you have a lack of connection to the fin, you're losing a lot of potential power and a lot of control in this fin. So it's heavy. It doesn't come with a vented design to relieve suction for the foot pocket. And the foot pocket is square, and there's no relief in the design. It's straight down, and it only comes halfway on the boot. That's my problem with these fins. If it weren't for those things, these would probably be the best fins. If they were a little bit lighter in material, they provided more of a connection in the heel, and they came with these designs built into them from the start. This would be an amazing fin for diving. Again, I started off thinking that this was the best fin, and there's lots of people out there, and there's even a dive agency that will tell you till they're blue in the face that this is the only good fin in the world. That's just not true. So pros and cons for the jet fins. And again, you can see that. The next fin I'm going to talk about is going to be one of the newer, most popular fins in the world, is the RK3. Now, RK3 is made by Apex. It stands for Rocket 3. It's the third generation rocket fin. The US divers or aqualung rocket fin is just as old as the jet fin, and it was never meant for diving. That's not what it was intended for. its design use was made for surface swimming. A long time ago, decades ago, I think in the 60s or 50s, the U.S. Department of Defense put out a requisition for fins to be produced for two purposes. One was for surface swimming and the other for diving. All the bids went out and the award winners went to the people who produced the designs that were best at the time. The SCUBA Pro jet fin was given the contract for diving use. They produced a good diving fin. And U.S. divers produced the rocket fin, and they got the contract for surface swimming. To this day, rocket fins, now the Rocket 2, the second generation, are issued to rescue swimmers for the Navy and the Coast Guard during school. I still have a pair of original U.S. divers rocket fins as well. But they've gone through a generational change, a new update somewhere around 2003-ish, 2004. Then they started getting what's called the Rocket 2s, the second generation. And at some point, U.S. and British Special Operations Command put out a request for a new fin design for divers. Well, at that time, Apex had bought out, Aqualung bought out Apex, and Apex was producing this design, this updated design. And then they rebranded it afterwards for use. It did win, and of course it started getting used by the U.S. and British military for diving use. But essentially, it got rebranded and was opened up to the commercial market for public purchase. So this is the third generation rocket fin. You can see there's some design differences here. The blade is shorter. It's not rounded. It's pointed. And they have these middle rails that come down to add extra support and extra stability to this fin. This was made for shredding water on the surface and giving you very fast propulsion, making you very quick in the water. That's what this was meant to do. But divers like it because it provides a lot of power. So this fin provides more power than the jet fins do. But there's some design characteristics to this fin that make it superior to the jet fin. All right, one is, if you'll notice, the foot pocket has relief in the design. So it's angled. The top of the foot pocket here, the bottom comes much further back. And as you can see, it comes further back onto the heel of the boot. The boot fits much further in because of it. The foot pocket's also taller than the jet fin, and it's also significantly wider than the jet fin. So more foot sizes can fit inside the pocket. And because of this, because more of the foot can fit in and more of the bottom of the fin is in contact with the sole of the foot, this fin gives you exceptionally more power because it feels like it's an extension of your body because you're connected to it more, and it gives you a lot more control. Also, they did take the hint. They noticed that people were drilling holes, and so they incorporated these relief holes, these pressure relief holes in here. They do act as drainage holes, of course, but they relieve the pressure from the suction effect that happens when you put your foot inside the fin. So those two design characteristics, it's still a vented rubber fin, but those two things make this fin exceptionally better than the jet fin. Now these come in two types, and lots of people review these fins online, like on YouTube and other social media platforms. And they ignore this completely, and they say, oh, the RK3s are very flexible and soft. That's true, but it's not true, and it's only half the story. These fins come in two different types. The standard type is soft, and it is slightly positively buoyant. So it is easier on the legs. It doesn't provide as much thrust or power because it folds much easier. And if you took them off your feet underwater, they will float to the surface. The other version is called the HD version, or the high density version. That's what these ones are. And the HD ones are stiffer than jet fins, much stiffer. So it takes a lot more effort for you to use them. And when they're brand new, they kind of feel like planks of wood on your feet. And over time, they begin to break in and kind of take more of a middle ground, if you will. The high density ones are stiffer. They provide way more power, a lot more thrust, a lot more control. And if you took them off your feet in the water, they will hang for about half a second, then they start sinking to the bottom. So they are negatively buoyant in the water. So all in all, Apex did a great job of taking a very classic design that's been around since the late 50s and 60s, for the rocket fin, transforming it into a diver fin after 3 generations, and producing a fin that is superior to the jet fin in performance characteristics, simply because of these minor design changes. However, whether or not this is the best fin, I think is still subjective, because there's other fins that have these design characteristics but do a better job of it, but maybe not provide the type of performance you're looking for. So this one is a cheap fin, all right? It's cheap. You'll find several companies buy this fin and brand it as their own. This one's made by Hog. They call it the Velocity Pro. Another company, SCUBA, also has these exact same fins. Okay, so this is not brand unique. But this is a vented paddle fin, which is kind of rare. Normally paddle fins are solid, right? They don't have this vent in here. Remember, the vent is for the reset. You perform your kick, and then when you reset, allows some water to move through, makes it easier on your muscles for that reset, okay? But this is kind of a adaptation of one of the other most popular fins in the world besides the vented rubber fin, and that would be the Mars Avanti Quattro fins, which are a paddle fin, and they have a hybrid design to them, okay? But before I get to the paddle part of the design, let me talk about the foot pocket. Look at the relief on that pocket. From the top here down, look how far back that comes. If I were to take a boot and put it in there, just take a look at this and see how far this comes back. This is the same shoe that was in the rocket fin, the RK3. Look how far back that comes. Similar to the RK3, right? So more of the foot is in contact with the fin, and that gives you a higher degree of control. However, I also want you to notice that these fins are still much taller than the boot. So you can fit a larger style boot with a thicker sole into this fin. And they're also quite wide. You see there's still significant space in there for a wider foot. So these fins would be good for a wide variety of large sized foots. This one's kind of narrow, so you might have a lot of boots, especially rock boots and dry suit boots, that are very tall. And this would be a superior foot pocket for a very tall style boot, okay? So this whole front of the toe is open, so even the toe can protrude through if it needs to a little bit, but there's no suction effect at all on these fins. The boot comes right out super easy after the dive is over with. So you get full attachment, you get lots of degree of control. It feels like an extension of the body, and it's very easy to take off. So that's a good design. That is going to make the diver feel really, really connected to this fin, and it's going to provide them with a high degree of confidence. Now you notice that these also have thicker rails, right? These rails provide support for the paddle part, right? The actual blade. And the blade's made out of a composite of several different types of materials. You have a harder, firmer plastic material here, and then you have a soft rubber material here. Why would a company want to do that? So this is actually a pretty soft fin by comparison to the RK3s. The company would want to do that because when the fin moves through the water, right? Because remember, you're like this, okay? When the fin moves through the water this way, this soft material flexes and the whole fin folds like this. So the fin is traveling in this direction, but the fin is kind of folding forward. What's happening is these thick, high rails are taking the water, and because the fin is flexible here, the water is getting pushed to the middle, and then it's getting flicked off the end. So these provide a lot of thrust. They provide an exceptional amount of thrust. These provide much more thrust, if you will, not necessarily power, but thrust, which kind of is equal to power, but we're talking about forward movement, right? These provide much more than the jet fin and the rocket fin combined, even though they don't weigh anywhere near either of the weight of those two fins, and they're neutral in the water. As long as you don't like put a set of metal spring straps on them, then they become negative. So if you have just the rubber strap it comes with, or if you take that off and you install bungee, you can take these off your foot and let go of them, and they just hover. They might hover kind of like so, with the denser material at the bottom, but they don't sink or float. They're neutral in the water, so they don't affect the moment of your feet at all, causing you to have any extra tilt issues that you need to adjust for. So they weigh nothing. They're great for travel. They provide a lot of thrust. But what's the drawback here? The drawback to these fins is that because they're so flexible, they don't provide as much control. So if you're looking for control, like precise, precision type control in the water, these are gonna kind of remove some of that. They are about a medium stiffness, but if you're trying to do something like helicopter turns or back fitting, especially if there's any current at all, you're gonna have to be really good at those things and very patient and move slowly. Because if you move too quickly, going backwards, for example, the fin will fold one direction or the other, making your feet go that direction. It'll be much more difficult for you to do something like back finning. That's where skill and finesse come in and becomes much more important versus something like the RK3s or the jet fins. Okay, so this design may be better for somebody who doesn't really necessarily need all that control, but they want the power. Diving open ocean, you know, and where there's currents and you're not really worried about moving backwards away from something, constantly, you know, moving forward throughout the whole dive, these might be an advantage. Conversely enough, the last set of fins are the same way. So this is a solid paddle fin. It is essentially a replica of the Avanti Quattro fins. This one's made by SEAC. Now, again, same material here. Solid paddle fin though, there's no vent whatsoever. Lots of relief. Actually, no, correction. These ones don't have as great of a relief. It's still there, but it's not as good as the cheap fins that I just showed you. Or the RK3s. It's sort of slightly less, I would say. It's not quite as much of an angle, but they still provide way more relief than the jet fins do. But these are basically the design that is sort of, you know, in the running tied for the most popular fins in the world. Same principle here, stiff fur material, soft rubber material here, big thick rails that trap and capture the water, and when you kick, it wraps, the fin wraps around and pushes the water toward the middle and then off the end. These ones are much more flexible, I think, than the cheaper fins that I just showed. So maybe if you don't really have strong leg muscles or you're sort of newer to diving, this may be why the Avanti Quattros, which I think are stiffer, maybe why they're really popular, and still can in the category of like a medium length. It's not a short length fin, it's a medium length fin. It's sort of medium to light stiffness kind of fin, and neutral in the water column as long as you don't replace the rubber bungee with spring straps. But follows the same principles, right? It's got a pressure relief hole here to relieve suction effect from the foot pocket. It has an extension in the bottom where there's relief in the cut, so it's more of a diagonal shape to provide increased contact with the bottom of the sole of the boot with the fin. And then the paddle-like design is made of a composite between firm and soft materials to give you that effect that allows you to have increased thrust. Again, because these are softer, they're even softer than the previous fins, these will not provide the control that you may desire if you want precise control in the water column. Okay, so there are pros and cons to all of these, and I feel like, again, as an instructor, it's your responsibility to provide people with this type of information when they're talking about equipment and what equipment is right for them. All right, we talked about two primary categories, or three if you will. The vented rubber fins, two types. One had superior characteristics over the other. And then we talked about paddle fins, and there were two types of those. One was vented and one was non-vented, and the characteristics for those. Now, whether or not you as a diver need or desire to have a vented rubber fin for the power and the precise control that they provide, or whether you're looking for the power and thrust, but you're willing to sacrifice the control when selecting a paddle fin, that's up to you. okay? But it's important that people discuss these types of things and they talk about the different fin characteristics, design characteristics, when making decisions for equipment use. Okay, I know that was a long video, but like I feel like it's really important to talk about that kind of stuff, and nobody really does. Anyway, have a great day, and hopefully this helps you make a more informed choice over the types of fins that you think are right for your type of diving.